Hello everyone. يعطيكم العافية جميعا. مساكم الله بالخير ومبارك عليكم ما بقى من الشهر. We're really glad that everyone is joining us. It's really a good time for everyone, especially that we're all in lockdown, to basically do something related to research and investigate and learn more as much as we can since we're all locked down. I will do this presentation or this lecture with, I'm sorry, people are joining in, so I'm trying to let them in. I will be sharing this lecture, co-lecturing with Dr. Mu'min. Dr. Mu'min is my colleague from the University of Birmingham. He's a lecturer in Arabic and translation and interpreting studies. He did a lot of years in the University of Birmingham as a lecturer, and he was the head of department of the English department in the University of Jeddah. As for me, I am an assistant professor of English and translation studies in the American International College here in Kuwait. I think we should start.
Yeah. I don't know. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh جميعا. Please, to make sure, just to start, Dr. Asma, إذا الجميع يسمعوا أي حد يبعث لنا أو في غرفة هنا في الشات يبعث لنا confirmation if they don't hear. لأن حنبدأ الآن وضروري they should be يعني everyone should be hearing us. أوكي، في حد بعث لنا في الروم إن شاء الله يبدأ يسمعوا فينا. ممتاز جدا. عبد الله. أوكي. Yes, another one. ما شاء الله ممتاز. Okay, you can تبدأ ما شاء الله. That's fine.
All right. Okay. Okay, we will start now then. So today we will, so basically, Dr. Walid is another colleague of mine. So welcome, Dr. Walid. We all did a study in the University of Birmingham. So basically, I will basically start with saying one thing, because it's a religious month and because me and Dr. Mu'min are working together on some research and publication related to Quran translation and the translation of Quran. This is basically because there is a lot of lack of research related to Quran translation. And as we know, there is actually no, there is no giving theory to translate religious text, whether the Bible, the Quran, or any religious or any other religious text, specifically the Quran, given its archaic or very complicated language, giving the beauty of the language, its sophistication and the phonetics, the semantics, and the syntax. So basically, in order for us to develop a theory, we need to understand all the theories related to translation, and we need to understand how do we approach the text that we have, and whether we are translating it just for interpretation, or we're trying to come up with a text that is regarded as holy as the Quran itself. Okay, sorry, I'm just adding to people. This is really new. Okay, so the first thing that I have to unmute Dr. Mu'min. Sorry, Mu'min. Here we go. You wanted to say, go ahead, please, go ahead.
I'm sorry. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. إن شاء الله نسأل الله يتقبل منا ومنكم صيام رمضان وقيامه ويعيننا عليه. I think today we will start with the sorry, Dr. Asma. I think some people are waiting here. If you add me as an admin, I can admin as well. While you are speaking. So إذا تقدر تضيفيني كأدمن I will add them. Okay. طبعا بالنسبة لترجمة القرآن الكريم، طبعا هو الترجمة بشكل عام يعني نتعامل مع النص أو حسب النص، سواء مثلا كان نص علمي أو نص أدبي أو كما نعلم طبعا الجميع هنا إن شاء الله يكونوا لديهم فكرة عامة عن الترجمة أو متخصصين بها. النقطة المهمة اللي نحب نشير لها هنا أن ليس ترجمة القرآن الكريم بالذات، يعني عندما نأتي إلى ترجمة القرآن الكريم يجب أن نحدد، يعني لا نستطيع أن نقول ترجمة، لأن أنا أعتقد قبل 15 years ago يعني من عام أعتقد عام 2004 يعني كانت هناك تقريبا 10 تراجم أو ترجمات للقرآن الكريم، هذه التراجم المعروفة والمعتمدة يعني. فهذا بالنسبة للترجمة. لكن الآن ما شاء الله يعني عدة التراجم منذ عام 2004 إلى الآن، في عدة تراجم ظهرت عندنا. لكن المشكلة هنا يجب أن نحدد ما هي أي نوع من الترجمة، لأن نحن نعرف اللي هو السورس تكست اناليسيس. طبعا قبل ان نبدا في الترجمه، الترجمه as a process، سواء درسناها نظريا او طبقناها عمليا. الترجمه as a process and as a product. يعني as a process اللي هو source text oriented، اللي هو على سبيل المثال تحليل النص الاصلي. هنا النص الاصلي ليس نص عادي، ليس نص بشري. يعني النص الذي نتحدث عنه طبعا هنا عفوا دكتورة أسماء، الجميع هنا عرب يعني ما فيش مشكلة لو حكيت عربي أو should be English.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's fine. Yeah, but just in case someone doesn't understand, because we have some colleagues from the States or the UK, so just in case.
Okay, so you mean that I can speak for both?
You can do both. I you know me. I always.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So yeah. As we say here, the translation before the first step in translation is the understanding of the first source language text. So the source text is not. I'm not going to say it's abnormal text, but it's not like something written by a human. You know, it's not like any text. Sometimes even if you see any text in medical or medical text or in literature, you find it very complicated, very complex. A lot of work need to be done before you start the translation process. Now we are talking about that the religious text, the translation of the Holy Quran. Everyone knows the language. I mean, everyone knows what's the language of the Quran is, you know. So before we start, as a first step, this is what I've done like 16 years ago. As a first step to work on this, I mean, it's not only to work on the translation of the Quran, but it was my first study on this field. The first step is the analysis of the source text. تحليل النص الأصلي. Okay, اللي هو النص القرآن. You know, the challenge was okay, there is different. I want to do that metaphor, for example. I want to work on the metaphor, for example. لكن الميتافور هنا الاستعارة is completely is different. It is rhetoric language, metaphorical language اللي هو بيان، علم البلاغة وعلم البيان في اللغة العربية. يعني أنا لا أترجم معاني، ليس الموضوع موضوع ترجمة معاني في القرآن الكريم، ولكن موضوع اللغة البلاغية، يعني metaphorical or rhetorical language. Okay, so through this I went through different steps. I have to decide first. يعني نحن كلنا نعرف ان الامام الشعراوي رحمه الله عليه، محمد متولي الشعراوي، تفسيره للقرآن تفسير تحليلي، deep analysis or something like this. يعني لا يستند عن يفسر. هناك تفسير القرآن بالقرآن، تفسير القرآن بالسنة، سنة الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم، سواء من أحاديث أو من أفعال. تفسير القرآن العلمي الذي قام به مثلا الزنداني أو بعض الأشخاص يربطون القرآن بحقائق معينة. تفسير التحليل اللي هو deep structure يقوم به الشعراوي. فهنا قبل أن نبدأ في الترجمة، سوف أتحدث عن هذا لاحقا عندما آتي إلى الأمثلة، لأن I want to support my discussion with some examples in this regard. So this is what I want to say. Is the most important thing, we are not dealing with any text, okay? And you need to decide what you want to do, what part of the Quran you want to do. Is it a rhetorical language? Is it just meaning? It's some scientific facts, for example. So you need to decide first, okay? And I will give you now Dr. Asma to talk about this, because later I will talk about this in a bit detail with some examples.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So basically, with a nice introduction from Dr. Moomin, I will start with the outline and what we will cover in this session. We're hoping to go within 1 hour. We have a discussion, but we need to bear in mind that Dr. Moomin is still in the UK, so his timing is he's going to have to break his fast within an hour or so. So the outline is basically, we will first start by doing the we will discuss the translatability of the Quran. Can we translate a holy text? Is that okay? Or the translation is merely regarded as a interpretation or a meaning of the Quran, so it's not really a holy text. And then we will discuss the challenges that we as translators face when we translate the Quran. What exactly are these challenges, and how do translators approach these challenges, the given translation approaches? And when I say that, I don't mean that there is a translation theory yet for translating the Quran. Unfortunately, when it comes to Quran translation, there is very little research done in this regards. So I really believe that we as researchers, we need to investigate more, and perhaps we need to come up with a module to actually translate that. Because when I did my research a few years ago, and I'm still doing that research to actually discuss Quran translation, unfortunately the references or the resources that I come up with, they're either very old or they're very much little. Then we're moving into a list of Quran translations, a number of Quran translations that we have seen and that exist already, and where they are, how they are, and how exactly they deal with the Quran. Last but not least, we will give you some examples from my own research and from Dr. Moomin's research. So, the first thing that we will do is basically the Quran. Is it translatable? First, we need to discuss the first important thing is, why do we really need to translate the Quran? The Quran is Arabic. Arabic is, most Muslims are Arabic, so why do we need to translate it? However, that's not true. Many people who are Muslims, they're not even Arabic, they do not speak Arabic, like in Asia, India, and Pakistan, and China, and other countries. And now a lot of people actually develop the sense of, we need to understand this text, this holy text. So they need to see a very good translation. So the idea of translating the Quran is really important, whether the translation should be regarded as, this is a holy text, or the translation should be regarded as, this is just a interpretation and understanding of the holy text, which is back again to the legitimacy of the translation. And then we move on into the impossibility of translating the Quran because of linguistics issues, or because of issues regarded to language, culture, or specific terms like tayammum, wudu, umrah, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the first argument that we have is by Fatani and Taibawi. To them, they argue against translating the Quran because of the one simple phrase or ayahs in the Quran that says, "Inna anzalnahu Qur'anan Arabiyyan." Hence, it's in Arabic. It's the words of God, so you cannot really translate the words of God. It's holy. It will be distortion, and it won't come out right. So we cannot translate the Quran because it's supposed to be in Arabic. The second argument is by Al-Qattan, which basically says we can translate the Quran, but this translation will not be regarded as translation, but mainly as an interpretation. Like we always have, if you know a lot of Quran tafasir, we have like the Quran itself, and then the ayahs or the surahs, and then by the side we have the interpretation of it. And this is what we call a ترجمة تفسيرية, which is basically, I'm trying to explain to you what the text is all about, rather than actually translate the text itself. So in a way, I'm giving you an interpretation, an explanation of the Quran, and not the Holy Quran in another language, whether English or any other language. Dr. Moomin, if you want to interrupt me at any point, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have an argument by Abdul Rauf. Hussein Abdul Rauf is actually one of the most important people. If you are doing a Quran translation, a research, or any research related to Quran translation and the translation of specific items in the Quran, specific linguistics items, Dr. Hussein Abdul Rauf is one of the only people actually who are doing a lot of research and have publications, books, and journals, articles and journals regarding translation aspects in Quran, demanding that there should be a theory to translate the Quran. And Abdul Rauf's idea of translating the Quran is basically that we all know that the Quranic discourse is basically it's a miracle, whether we like it or not, because people could not really come up with something similar. It's very sophisticated when it comes to language, when it comes to even the sounds, semantic, phonetic, and also the cultural aspects within the text. So basically, it's a mixture of everything. It's a rainbow of everything. And once you translate that, you will eventually lose something, whether the beauty of the linguistics aspect of it, or you're simply lose some meaning. So that's why a lot of people when they try to translate the Quran, they need to translate it regarding to one aspect, whether I need to translate it and make it beautiful just like it is, or translate the meaning and then regardless to how beautiful it will look like. So we will discuss now the challenges that the people, sorry, admitting people here. This is really weird. It's a new, it's really new, but it's yeah, it's amazing because we used to wait for conferences, so now we can just have a conference anytime soon. Okay, so challenges that we translators face when we're translating the Quran. As we said before, any text, when it comes to translation, you need to first understand the source text, like how Dr. Muma said, because once you understand the text, then you will be able to be aware of all aspects related to the text. So basically, you understand the meaning of each word and why this word or that term was used instead of others. And then, like for example, the usage of words like al-madar against al-ghayth. Why was it used al-madar and not al-ghayth, and why the other way around? So that's really important. And then we need to understand the reason for that text. Why does it exist? And also, we need to decide, why are we translating it? So what's exactly is the purpose of translating the text? Is it just because I need people to understand the Quran? Is it for English language speakers? Is it for educational purposes? And then you will decide on your approach, because many of the translations that we have nowadays was referred to by a lot of people as very archaic language, like very archaic English language, similarly to the language of the Bible. And people don't really understand that language anymore. They need a modern language. They need an easy language so they can just read it and understand it. And we will touch upon that here shortly, inshallah. Okay, so the first challenge that many people face is related to culture. We all know that culture is always intertwined with any text. So once you translate a text, you're translating a culture. And once you translate a culture, you need to translate it appropriately to the language that the target language that you are translating into. So you need to make sure that the audience of the target language understand the terms that you use. And in a way, if you are taking the culture item or reference from one culture into another, you need to make it understandable, or you need to replace it with something that would make sense into the other language. And here is the first problem that faces a lot of people in general when translating any culture or aspect, or in specific when related to translating the Quran and holy text. For example, the existence of lexical and semantic items. You will see words like as simple as Allah, as simple as Jannah and Nar. How do we translate it? A lot of people will come up and say, that's easy. God, Allah is God. Paradise is Jannah, and hellfire is Jahannam. However, that's not the case, because Allah in Islam is Allah, the only God and Almighty. However, God in Christianity is something else. In Buddhism, something else. So in each religion, God refers to something else. So we cannot simply take that word and just translate it into another word that is known in the culture for other references and say, God is Allah. And that's one of the main reasons God is always translated by a lot of people into Allah and not God in a lot of text. Also, paradise is Jannah and not paradise, basically, in English text. And this is perhaps to show people the meaning that the other culture means, that we have Allah, and in our culture or in our religion, Allah is the one God Almighty and cannot be replaced to another God in your religion. So it's kind of identification that we have one God, and it's Allah, basically. So that's one of the terms that a lot of people find it difficult to deal with. Also, other culture-related terms like al-wudu, al-umrah, al-tayammum. Those cultural specific items do not exist in other languages. And if you want to just transliterate it like wudu, people are not going to understand what do you mean. So it will be vague and might make no sense. And if you explain it, it would rather be awkward to translate in a text in a Quran, since it's a whole text and it follows, and then you have a word that makes no sense. So a lot of people tend to use footnotes and explain it. Similarly to Abdul Halim. Abdul Halim uses a lot of footnotes in his translation of the Quran, because he saw that we need to actually tell the reader what those words mean without just saying it. And even if there is a word that we came up with to for wudu, umrah, or tayammum, we need to actually explain it. And we need to maybe say it exactly the same and transliterate it. However, we need to explain it to the reader because it doesn't exist in their language. So a definition, a need for it is simply important. We need to define it. We need to make it clear, because if you're translating the text, you need to make it understandable to the target text audience. And if you're translating it for educational purposes, you need to make it obvious and clear. And that word, when you transliterate it without explanation, without definition, it would be vague to the target text audience, and that's not acceptable. But basically, those are one of the challenges that a lot of translator faces when it comes down to translating culture-specific items or terms related to Islam, and it's only related to the culture that exists in the culture itself. I think the structural challenge will be done by Dr. Moment.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah, you can keep the same. You take the lead regarding the. I don't need to share the slide. It's already there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you can. Yeah. 1 second. I just try to take in this. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, structure challenge here. For example, as we are discussing here, it's still about the source text, which is the Quran. So, and one these challenges, by the way, let us say the most common or the some of the challenge, because this is not the only challenge that we can see in the Quran. Every day you have something new. Even the Arabic grammar and rhetorical language, everything is built on the Quran. So maybe we still see some more challenges in the translations in the future. Okay. For example, before I start with this one, for example, let's say there is a word that came to my mind. I know someone who did his PhD in 3 words, libas and yom, 2 or 3 words. He did a whole discussion in a PhD. So because the same words keep changing in the context, the meaning. Okay, so the source text or the mode of the Quran is very important here. Let's say our first thing is structure. So yeah, it's iltifat. This is only one example. Iltifat in the structure in the language. Okay, this, by the way, iltifat here, it's the sudden change in the mode of speech used of the speaker or the person spoken about. It's used for emphasis and the aesthetic value for. So some people say it's just for emphasis. It's use of the Quran. For example, the Quran, the mode of the Quran in the same ayah, there is a change. There is a change here. Let's now see the example. Okay. So this iltifat, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها النبي اتق الله ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين إن الله كان عليما حكيما. This is the first one. For example, يا أيها النبي, this is a خطاب, okay, direct to إلى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. Then after that there is a change. إن الله كان عليما حكيما. The next آية واتبع ما يوحى إليك من ربك إن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. The same thing. واتبع ما يوحى إليك. So in the Quran, for example, for this example, we have three in the iltifat. Iltifat can come into three types, and these three types can be used in 6 different ways. For example, al-khitab, al-ghaiba, not al-ghiba, and at-takallum. So we have 3 types of iltifat. Yeah, just I check the slide because, yeah. Now, for example, this is only one mode of the Quran. So if we say, what's iltifat? What's iltifat? Iltifat is keep the changing in the mode, in the same verse, in the same ayah. This is used especially in the Quran. For example, قوله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله لنريه من آياتنا إنه هو السميع البصير إنه هو السميع البصير. For example, سبحان, okay, let's say الذي أسرى. This is the first one. Then بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي باركنا حوله. Then again لنريه من آياتنا. So the change here we can see, yeah, we can see below here the change. هذه in this verse الالتفات or التفات. You know التفات, it's the same التفات when you turn around, you are looking at someone. It's the same, but it's this التفات is in the language. So it's that change in the mode. For example, هذه الآية الالتفات في هذه الآية الالتفات من الغيبة, not الغيبة, yes, في قوله الذي أسرى. So this is the first thing. So this is called الغيبة. الذي أسرى. We are talking about الغيبة. Something is not here. So let's talk about let's say third person or something like this. Yeah. So الذي أسرى. الله يتحدث عن نفسه سبحانه وتعالى يقول الذي أسرى. Okay. So إلى التكلم في قوله to. So this is the second one, التكلم. This is the second type of الالتفات. It's في قوله تعالى لنريه من آياتنا. So here there is the change, to change in the language. Again, وفي الالتفات آخر. 1 second please. There is notification comes in the, yeah, that's fine. So وفيها التفات آخر من التكلم لنريه من آياتنا. Allah is talking about himself. ليري. Allah said لنريه. He will do something. So لنريه من آياتنا إلى الغيبة إنه هو السميع البصير. إنه هو السميع البصير. So there is moving from غيبة إلى التكلم, then تكلم إلى غيبة. Okay, and also there is something also الخطاب is addressing the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم or addressing other Muslims or non-believers or non-believers. So all this is only one thing in the Quran. All this is called it in the Holy Quran. It's called it, this mode, call it the altifat. So changing from one, moving to another, like addressing some people, then Allah talks about Himself. Then addressing people again. So this change, this is one of the challenging that. And when translating the Quran comes to the translator, okay? Yes, yes, Dr. Asma.
Okay, so so we discussed the semantic and the lexical challenges that faces translators. We move and then we move to structural, and now we move to the rhetorical language, basically something related to the beauty of the language, similarly to metaphors, repetition, and so on and so forth. And one of the most important things that have been noticed in the Quran, it's linguistic beauty. The first thing that we notice is basically alteration, which is the occurrence of an identical sound at the beginning of each word repetitively. for example, and this is basically to create a nice sound. For example, we have the phrase وَمِنْ أَظْلَمَ مِمَّنْ مَنَعَ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ. We see that there is a repetition of the letter ميم, حرف الميم متكرر, من ممن منع مساجد. It creates a very, very nice sound when you hear it. And basically things like that are very, very, very hard to translate for translators, because in the language it creates a nice sound and it fits together, it's very nice, and it gives a very nice flow. However, when you translate it into English or any other language, you will not be able as a translator to create the same meaning and have a similar nice phonetic sound to it. That would be very, very hard to do. So that's why it's so that's why basically this is one of the challenges that a lot of translator faces, and they need to actually see whether, all right, I need to simply say the meaning and translate the meaning regardless to its beauty, whether the sentence will be beautiful as it is or ugly, but the meaning is there. However, you're losing a very important thing, which is the miracle of the Quran, the beauty of the Quran, the beauty of the way it sounds as well as it means. So that's a thing that you lose eventually when you're doing the translation, or when you decide whether you approach, I rather the meaning or I rather the beauty of it. And when you want to do the beauty of it, you might actually lose the meaning. And you might come up with a very weird structural sentence in the language itself, in English. And then we move into another challenge, which is basically repetition or abysicus, which is to repeat a word or a phrase more than one time. And we all know that in English, repetition is very frowned upon. It's called actually redundancy, and it's one of the things that people hate when it comes to Arabs doing English text or English essays or research. And I've corrected a lot of essays for students, and most of the time repetition is just there, whether in synonyms, repeating synonyms in one sentence, or repeating sentences right after each other. Anyhow, repetition exists in Arabic. In Arabic, it's actually one of the most favorite features of Arabic language. It means emphasis. It perhaps means also highlighting a point and showing how important it is. Rather than English, it simply means a very poor structure. So that's why this is another thing that we deal with when it comes to to translating the Quran, or translating text from English into from Arabic into English. I will take you a little bit just to wildly into another topic, which I will do inshallah by the end of next week, which is a political translation. Repetition is very famous actually in political discourse, and I know this is not related to the Quran translation, but I wanted to say this because, like I said again, once you realize what the text is and what does it mean and why you are translating the text, which is basically the purpose of translating the text, you will then know what approach is best suitable to translate the text. Because a lot of people, when they translate Arabic into English, or actually English text itself, when it comes to political discourse, repetition is a very good thing, even in English. However, in normal English discourse, repetition is frowned upon. So that's why when it comes to translating the Quran, translating repetition is very difficult, very frowned upon, and it considered redundant and makes the reader, the target text audience, feel actually confused maybe, and they see it as unneeded repetition. One of the sentences that we have here is فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. So this is basically one of the most important aspects that we see in Quran. A certain phrase or a certain word is repeated over and over, sometimes in one surah, sometimes in the same ayah, in the same verse, repeated more than one time to emphasize something or to show the importance of something, or sometimes to actually emphasize the importance of punishment that people, so people actually feel basically scared of doing something wrong, something like that. I saw Abdullah's writing Su'al Jamil. I don't know if you're asking us or you are.
No. One of the people there asked his question, then he answered a good answer. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I thought. Okay.
There is a good chat. I'm following that. Wallah.
Okay.
MashaAllah alim.
Because we will have a discussion at the end of the session. Basically, we do have approximately half an hour, so that's good enough. I will leave the two other challenges to Dr. Moomin. We have assonance and metaphor. He will discuss that with you.
Yes, the first one called assonance, the similarity of the final sounds in several words in a sentence, such as فيها سرر مرفوعة وأكواب موضوعة. So هنا yes, exactly this in Arabic is السجع, and وهو يعني السجع هنا the similarity يعني في نهاية the end of every word or every verse آية. Like let us say السجع, نقول السجع في النثر يعتبر used usually في النثر, ولكن هو the same القافية. تعرفون بالنسبة للقافية هو الرhythm, الرhythm أو القافية يكون في نهاية at the end of the lines in the poetry. Okay, any poem for example في نهاية يقول مثلا قفا نبكي من ذكر حبيب ومنزلي بسقط اللوى بين الدخول فحوملي. هذا for example this is the قافية. أما بالنسبة للشعر للسجع يأتي في النثر. وفي عندنا مثلا أسلوب هذا معروف في عند العرب. for example اللهم أعطي منفقا خلفا واعطي ممسكا تلفا. حديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم خلفا تلفا. أيضا for example in Arabic تعليم اللغة العربية يقال صف ذا ثنا كم جاد شخص قد سما زد في تقاد طيبا ضع ظالما. This is can be يعني هذا في تعليم اللغة العربية يعني sorry في أحكام القرآن. لذلك السجع اسلوب في اللغه العربيه اسلوب معروف اللي هو سواء في احاديث الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم في القواعد اللغه العربيه في اسلوب القران ايضا هذا هو السجع. ايضا يعتبر السجع الموجود في ليس بالنسبه هو exactly السجع هي exactly the same when we say the rhyme in the poetry. هو بالنسبه في القصيده نهايه القصيده سواء حرف الكسره او الياء او الالف او الفتحه اي حرف من الحروف هذين او الحركات. Okay, for example مرفوعه موضوعه. So this is also gives a challenge. This one gives a challenge to the translator. So the translator, because he is not, as we said, everyone knows this, and so he's not translating the Quran. He is translating the meaning, the interpretation of the Quran. So, but still, this still makes sense. I mean that we'll talk about this one later, the aesthetic value that could be missed when you translate something like the Quran, for example. Okay, next one is the metaphor. Okay, metaphor here, figure of a speech. ومن آياته أنك ترى الأرض خاشعة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت. So الأرض خاشعة، الخشوع نعرفوه للبشر طبعا، الخشوع في الصلاة أو غيرها، فهنا يعتبر كميتافور. We'll talk about metaphor in a bit detail later because we need to metaphor. This is only one type of rhetoric language, of figurative or figure of language. So figurative language or rhetorical language, metaphor is one type. Or also فيه تشبيه. التشبيه نعم، الاستعارة، الكناية، all these okay نستعملها different in Arabic. اوكي. طبعا there is something very important here. ليس كل قاعدة في اللغة الإنجليزية is the equivalent one in Arabic. So there is completely different even the البيان. For example نعرف أن احنا المشبه والمشبه به ووجه الشبه. This is also, we can also see this one. Yes, sorry, some people are waiting. Yeah, we can also see this one in English. ولكن المستعار منه أشياء غير موجودة في اللغة الإنجليزية، لذلك تم ابتكار بعض المصطلحات لها طبعا فيها. لذلك we cannot see this, the languages are equivalent، يعني اللغات متشابهة. اوكي. So هنا الميتافور اللي هو figure of language هو اللغة المزاجية بشكل عام. يعني الميتافور هنا ليس كاستعارة. استعارة we'll talk about that later. But metaphor here not as استعارة ولكن as a مزاج. لأن الميتافور اوكي، لأني شفت الآن I saw someone of the students say in yes talking about خاشعة تشبيه. نتحدث نحن هنا لأن نعرف التشبيه البليغ لا يوجد فيه لا يوجد فيه أداة التشبيه وكذا. فالميتافور هنا المزاج، اللغة المزاجية، يعني figurative language or figure of a speech. Okay, so if you go Dr. Asma to the next slide, so maybe you have examples.
I just wanted to say something in regards to al-ard khashi'a. Yes, it is tashbih because we call that a personification, if I'm not mistaken. I did that also in my recent research, explaining how it's basically translating political discourse of Hosni Mubarak into English, and Hosni Mubarak refers to Egypt as a person. علينا أن نحمي مصر. And لا تنكسر مصر. So basically this is a form of metaphor that is used to refer to someone as to make something into a human, or referring to something that is not alive as a human, that has feelings and is just, you know, feels something or scared or will break down or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So now we will discuss very briefly the translation approaches. So like I said, it's very, unfortunately, we do not still have a very specific translation theory. We have a lot of theories: domestication, foreignization, semantic approaches, equivalence theories, all of them regarding translation in general, translating the cultural aspect, translating the meaning of self, translating something related to another religion or another culture into another one based on my own understanding of it. However, we have Robinson in 2002 who says, can we really translate the Quran and have a translation theory regarding translating religious holy text? And we did not come up with anything of that sort yet. Unfortunately, we do not have, not just the Quran, even the Bible or any other religious text, we do not have any theory in that regards. However, all the other translators, when they are attempting to translate the Quran or any holy text, they use two theories. The semantic approach, which is basically similar to a literal word-for-word translation. So I will see the word and then I'll simply translate it the way it is. That's it. And there are similar translation like that. It's by Bell, Arbery, and Ali. And then we move into the other approach, which is basically communicative translation approach. Communicative translation approach is something that I always go for. It's basically to understand the meaning behind the sentence, behind the text that you have, rather than carry the beauty of it. Because once you try to carry the beauty of it, you will lose the meaning. And I rather understand the text than look at it and say, oh, it's actually beautiful, it sounds really nice, but what do you mean? Because a lot of texts try to imitate the Quran, the linguistics beauty of it. For example, like Dr. Muma said, the al-Ghafiyya, and then they basically lost the meaning and came up with a very weird English structure or a very weird sentence that is not acceptable to the standard of the language, the given language, whether English or any other language. So communicative translation, again, is basically to translate the text into its meaning using a contemporary English. When I say contemporary English, it's basically the same, the good structure, the good English structure that we use in academic world, rather than we use in Shakespeare and Chomsky, or the complicated text, or the Bible, for example, the very archaic language that a lot of people nowadays read and say, we don't understand it. Example of this translation is Akbar, Irving, and Turner. We also have, I will discuss a little bit of the translation. So